That runs 3 times each year, and this is our second of 3 programs, and we will be having our 3rd program on April 12th. Julie Barron will be joining us to share with us her book, What Works with Teens. So if you want to put that on your calendar, we'd love to have you come back and join us. Tonight we have a very exceptional program that we're very proud of. We have Jenni Voorhees here with us tonight, who is the coordinator of an academic technology at Sidwell Friends School. She is centered at the lower school, where she is the academic dean, as well as the IDEA coordinator, linking technology to curriculum. Jenni has helped integrate iPads at the lower school since 2011, with a focus on pedagogy and purpose. With her teaching team, she writes the iPad Adventures at Lower School blog. Jenni speaks and runs workshops about digital citizenship, digital ethics, and media literacy in schools from Richmond to Baltimore at many professional conferences, and she is currently the chair of the NIAS Innovation Task Force, which is an advisory group for the National Association of Independent Schools. We are very honored and grateful that Jenni has been able to come to McLean tonight and share her expertise with us on empowering your child to safely navigate the internet. After Jenni presents, she'll be joined with our academic program department team, who will be answering your questions around technology, both in the world and at McLean. Okay, so please welcome Jenni to McLean.
I'm glad to be here. Tonight I'm going to present for a little while and talk, sort of give you some ideas and some thoughts to work with, and then we'll have a chance to have a lot more voices, the people here from McLean, that will really maybe get down to some issues, some direct issues that you might have brought in the door with you. So I talk to a lot of different people, children, adults, teenagers, about the same thing. And in many ways, it's kind of a lot of the same message, which really is, it's about making good choices. It's about adults making good choices, about how we model our internet, our behavior with devices. It's about children, obviously, making good choices. It's harder to make these choices now, and it's harder to understand them. Our children start much earlier than they used to with devices, and there are consequences that are really hard to believe. But I think it's been really clearly proven that the web means never forgetting. There is not going to be an opportunity to forget. I know that in Europe they've tried to create this option that you could be forgotten, but it's really kind of doubtful that it is. For one thing, there are always screenshots. So no matter what you thought you put up in a Snapchat or whatever it is, those screenshots, you don't know who took the screenshot. So you don't even know what's not being forgotten. So we have a job as adults, and that is to help ourselves and help our children understand that we're not going to not be on the internet. As a matter of fact, I Google myself, and I want to make sure that I like what I see. I want to create that long tail of really good stuff. If I had nothing, like when I interview someone, I'm interviewing them for something related to technology, and I look them up on the internet and they aren't there, then I'm suspicious too. Because what are they doing? Why are they applying for a tech job? So you want to create that long tail and help your children understand that there are really good things that they can have in their name that sort of follows them, because it's going to follow them.
Things I need to know.
Well, let me give you some very practical tips. First of all, I want everybody here to be careful about what you post on Facebook. Because in the YouTube age, whatever you do, it will be pulled up again later somewhere in your life. And when you're young, you make mistakes and you do some stupid stuff. And I've been hearing a lot about young people who, they're posting stuff on Facebook, and then suddenly they go apply for a job. Somebody's got a search, and so that's some practical political advice for you right there.
And we know it's true. You can find cases all over the place about children and adults who made really bad mistakes. They posted really bad things, and it was found, and it was searched. And I think probably all of you as professionals have cases in your office where you looked somebody up online and discovered things about them that made you not interview them or decide not to hire them. So we need ways to talk to our children and our students about this. And there are a couple of ways. One, when children are going to do bad things, and they're going to do stupid things. But now that technology is so integrated into our lives, and it's something that really is essential, you need to do your schoolwork on your device. You need to do the research. Then it's really not very practical to say, I'm taking away your laptop, or you can't touch that thing. So I think what we need are some tools to work with our children to actually do what they hate more than having their device taken away, which is talk about what they did. So this is more torture than missing out on their device. But having some kind of tools that you can use to walk through what happened and have the child come to that sense of their own logical consequences or what they really think probably should come out of the behavior and really have to reflect on it is one of our greatest powers. Because without that reflection and without the sense that they understand what happened, they're just going to do it again. They're not growing. And our job as parents is to help them grow. We've tried to do that with them cleaning their rooms and being responsible about the jobs at home. This is the same thing. It's our job to help them be reflective and really understand what the consequences are. Another tool we can use, and all of these, by the way, over on the food table, there's this little card, and this gives you access to a very sort of involved website because I keep putting new things on it. All of this material is on that website, and there's also resources for teachers and other things too. But you can just pick this up as you go out. So anyway, the Rings of Responsibility is by Carrie James. She's just written a book very recently called Disconnected Youth, New Media and the Ethics Gap. And she was focusing on this issue of ethical behavior online, which has been one of the kind of ongoing questions for a really long time, is how do we get people to tell the truth online? How can you compel them to do that? Well, you can't compel anyone to tell the truth. They have to understand it from within. So she's come up with some tools to talk to children and students and adults and everybody about just the responsibility that I have. So I post a picture of myself in a compromising position on Facebook. Who am I affecting? Who does that affect? Well, pretty much myself, although it might affect my family because they might be associated with me on Facebook. But what if I post a party with my friends drinking beer, underage, on Facebook, and I'm not in the picture? Well, I didn't think it affected myself, so I posted it because it's kind of cool. But who does it affect, and what are the ripple effects? So really kind of constantly going back and saying, how is this affecting the people around you? So that's another tool. And then another way is just to talk to the student and the child about the fact that whoever the me is that's sitting in front of that computer is the same me that plays with my friends at school or has the conversation with my teachers or makes choices about everything else that I do. That's still me, and it's still me when I'm sitting in front of that computer and I'm doing something that maybe that other me wouldn't be so proud of. That it's not different when it's online. And I feel as if in conversation there's less confusion about that for students these days than there was when we first had the internet and it was like, oh, no one's going to know who I am, because there are so many ways of following people. But we really want our kids to wonder, is this the me I want to be? When I'm doing this, when I'm saying this, when I'm having this conversation that's, mean online or whatever it is I'm doing, is this really who I want to be? And again, it has to come back to that. We can't make anybody be a nice person. We can only guide them that direction and have the conversations. But this comes down to modeling. So here's a challenge to the adults who are working with all these children. What are you modeling? How are you modeling good behavior? Do you demonstrate being offline? Do you demonstrate behavior that you expect them to do? Do you pick up your cell phone and talk on it on the driving the car, even though your teen driver is not supposed to do that? Are you aware of being, putting your cell phone away and really having that face-to-face conversation, or is it always sitting on the table the way your children have it, sitting on the table? And to me, this is the bigger question, is when is the downtime? When do you take time to daydream, to think uninterrupted? When I go on a dog walk or when I'm walking to the subway, I do not listen to music and I do not listen to podcasts or whatever, because that's the time I get ideas. Whatever it was that I was wrestling with before I went to bed last night, I finally figure it out on the way to the metro. If you don't take the time to daydream or to be bored, and this, don't get me on the question of DVDs in cars with children or at restaurants, iPads in front of small children at restaurants. If those children are never allowed to be bored, and yes, bored children are insufferable. You wish they would go away. Anything that it takes, please get that child to shut up. But really, after that boredom becomes the idea, or they learn something, or they finally say, yeah, okay, let's go out, let's go see how tortillas are made at the Cactus Cantina. Get out of the chair, walk around the restaurant, do something new. And if you don't allow boredom to happen, those children never expand their horizons. And it's true for all of us, too. So there's a lot of articles on boredom these days I think you can find. So for those who really need help. And this is another one. It really is important I actually was at a talk with like last year, and one of the speakers said, well, I don't really understand how my cell phone works, but my kids do, so it's not a problem. And I raised my hand and I'm like, that is no longer acceptable. It is not acceptable not to know how to work your tech tools, because when you're not working them, someone else is, and that you're giving away a whole lot of the guidance that you could be giving by just deciding not to learn how to do it. I mean, you've learned everything else. You can learn how to run your tech tools. And there is no place for a cell phone in this dinner table setting. And that is really important. I think that you have to set ground rules, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes, about where those phones belong and where they don't belong. And you have to follow that too. You can't say, I'm waiting for a call, I'm just going to have this phone on my table, but you tell the kids they can't. And if the kids are texting under the table, that's because you allowed them to bring their cell phones to the table. So it has to be, it's in the family. You've got to talk about it. So we will get back to some of those topics in a minute. This is an interesting problem for the adults and for the kids. And that is that there are more than one kind of digital footprint. So we hear about digital footprints and we talk about them in terms of what you're posting on Facebook, Instagram, Snap, whatever it is. But there's really a lot of different kinds of digital footprints. And active, obviously, it's what you do or what your kids do for themselves. But the passive is the data gathering, and that's being done by Google. If you have a Gmail account, every time you type in a term like, or if kids, if you've given your kids Gmail accounts at second grade, which many people in my school have, which I find very shocking, and I say, oh, okay, so when you typed Minecraft into your Gmail, what happened? Oh, there are all these cool ads for Minecraft. Isn't that amazing? I'm like, no, it's not amazing. It's actually because they're collecting information about you. And so there's the passive, and then there's the second hand, which is whether you're posting your kids' pictures on your Facebook, or the school is posting pictures or information about your kids on their website. There's a lot of passive digital footprints that also are happening all the time. And so as adults, we might want to really kind of take stock of what is happening for our kids and what are we doing with our own kids. And I have to say, my niece, I have lots of nieces and nephews, and some of them never post pictures of their babies and their new, their little children. And I have a niece, that child has been on Facebook since he was an hour old. We get videos, it's constantly by name and everything. So he's like the Facebook case. It'll be really interesting to see in the long term how much of his life is recorded, in the the big, what kind of digital footprints he has.
Today, instead of filling scrapbooks with children's photographs or capturing family vacations on the camcorder, we use digital film and photography to document our lives and the lives of our children. Sites like Facebook, Flickr, and YouTube make it easy to share these moments with friends and family across the country and around the world.
Ouch! Ouch! Ouch, Charlie! Ils avaient vu des crocodiles, des hippopotames, des girafes. Avaient fait un très long voyage.
Sites like these have become hugely popular for sharing media, but when a digital image or video is uploaded to the internet, it often becomes public. And if it's funny, cute, or completely embarrassing, a lot of people may decide to watch it. When a video is public, it can travel fast and far, and it often becomes permanent. If it ends up in someone else's hands, it can be taken out of context. This is Star Wars Kid. We'll call him Luke. Luke took this video of himself in November of 2002. Luke left his video in the basement of his high school, where he never expected anyone else to watch it. Luke's friend found the video and passed it to another friend, who passed it to another friend, who uploaded the video to YouTube in April of 2003. Since it was posted on YouTube, Luke's video has been viewed over 900 million times. Videos like this often end up in permanent online archives and can have long-term effects on the lives of their subjects. Luke and his parents sued all the friends who helped make the video public, claiming that Luke had to endure, and still endures today, harassment and derision from his high school mates and the public at large, and that he will be under psychiatric care for an indefinite amount of time. In another example, Domino's Pizza employees Christy and Michael made this video in April 2009. As you can see, what they were doing was pretty unprofessional, not to mention disgusting. Then they decided to post the video online anonymously. Within 24 hours, millions of people had watched the video. Christy and Michael were fired from their jobs and were arrested and charged with delivering contaminated foods. Christy later wrote, "It was all a prank, and neither me nor Michael expected to have this much attention from the videos that were uploaded. No food was ever sent out to any customer. We would never put something like that on YouTube if it were real. It was fake, and I wish everyone knew that." You may be thinking, my kids are way too cool for Star Wars, or my kids would never sneeze on a pizza. But once it's digital, anything can travel fast and far. So think before you share.
Stop crying or I'm going to put this on YouTube.
Comme ça, les gens ils sont tranquilles, ils peuvent faire tout ce qu'ils veulent, même les enfants.
All right, so yeah, we need to be aware of what we're posting, but our kids need to understand how fast these things happen. And that Star Wars Kid is one of the classic examples of real damage done to a child who didn't even know that his video was going to be discovered. That was real cyberbullying. And a lot of these things border on bullying as soon as you start sharing them anonymously and making them that popular. It can really be damaging. So I know I've had so many conversations with parents who've said, my child is so sophisticated and she's got all of her friends are on Facebook, so even though she's 11, I went ahead and let her make a Facebook profile. Well, 13 is the age for Facebook. If you go into any of the terms of service, you know that you're in, first of all, making a profile under 13 means you have a chance of being kicked off the service for good. But that in this day and age, you just go on with a different email address, so that doesn't really hurt it. It doesn't seem like a very big consequence. But there are reasons why 13 is a better age to wait. And Coppa is the Child Online Privacy Protection Act, which a lot of people want to argue about and whether it's really worth it and why we have it. But it does at least protect our children from those passive footprints that they're creating when they sign on to Gmail, or they sign on to Facebook, or they sign on to any of these services underage, because these services are identified as services that collect data. And they store the data. Facebook stores the data in their own little storage banks, which are very inaccessible and very hard to access even with lawyers. But they keep that data. And so everything that's been posted is being kept somewhere. So we don't want an 11-year-old making decisions that are going to come back to haunt him or her later. Yeah, people will give them a break. I think there's a little more flexibility in people's minds about something done by an 11-year-old than done by a 22-year-old. But it's still a concern, and it's something that we can really help with. If your child isn't in the social circle because they're not on Facebook at age 11, then you need to really talk to that child about why that really isn't a big deal and why it's not going to happen. I obviously never let my children do that, but they understood because we talked about whether it was really the appropriate place. Not only that, but when you're 11 and you sign on to Facebook, you don't sign on as a 13-year-old. You sign on as a 16, 18, 21-year-old, which gives you access to inappropriate content because you're over 18. And then it means that when your next birthday comes up and your friends are turning 15, you're turning 29. So it just gets very strange. But it's not something that they need to do, and I know it's very hard to talk somebody out of it. But what we want to do is teach our child to be aware of that long tail of good stuff that they can be creating online, and they can create it in appropriate places, and they don't need to be in this kind of social scene before they're ready for it. And I also agree that 13 is a better time to start doing that level of socializing than some 10 or 11-year-olds. So I'm going to just go through a little bit of, I want to talk about, again, the rings of responsibility and thinking about how we can protect our family and friends. But I'm going to just walk you through a lesson that we teach at Sidwell every single year in every single class at the lower school. And that's because we have iPads. And the most powerful thing about an iPad is the camera. And the most powerful thing about the camera is what you can do with those pictures, right? And sharing is obviously one of them. But also, you can put them into an art, some kind of art app, and you can change them and alter them and make them look sillier than they are, or make them look better than they are. But there's all kinds of power when you have somebody's image. And the question in this day and age that I raise all the time, and I'd love for you guys to wrestle with, is who really owns that image? Now, a professional photographer taking a portrait of me, actually, I'm probably going to pay that person, and they own that image because they created that piece of art, right? And I gave them that permission because I paid them for it. But in reality, who owns our images? Well, I know what I would like. I'd like to think that I own my image, that my image was under my control. And when you present that to children and you say, if someone's going to take your picture, what do you want to know? Can you guess what would you answer? So if I'm going to take your picture, what do you want to ask me before I do? What you're going to do with it. Exactly. What are you going to do with that picture? And then there's a second question that we always have, is how does it look, right? Both of those are really important questions because it's your image, right? And suddenly we're putting kids this came up. I always learn these lessons the hard way. This came up when the child took a secret picture of his teacher during a math lesson and emailed it to his mother. That was hilarious. Good story, because she was a brand new teacher. This is Leslie Young. We have some Sidwell people here. She was a brand new teacher, just married, like literally a month before that. And she came in with a really fancy hairdo she had gotten done. And this little boy snuck a picture of Miss Young during the math lesson and sent it to his mother by email and said, Miss Young's due. But he spelled it D-U-E because he didn't know any better. So it was, this big kerfuffle where fortunately, the mother turned around and said, and wrote back to the teachers like, were you going to tell us something? And then we realized what had happened. I thought, we haven't talked about the camera. I'm learning the hard way. we didn't discuss what appropriate use of this camera is. So we have this photo agreement every year, and we do a little, we act out this whole thing. But so I want to take your picture, I ask your permission. And the first thing, if you are allowed to say no. And this is a big piece of consent. And with technology, with everything in our day and age, consent is a tremendously large question to ask. It's a really good place to start with kids. I should have the ability to grant consent about this. This should be something you ask me about. And this is also, if you start very early, it's something you can bring up when, the boys are chasing the girls on the playground, and you say, did she want to be chased? Is she in the game? Well, no, but we're just chasing her. Well, she's not in the game. She didn't give you consent. That's not okay. You really have to build it very early. Anyway, so no, find someone else. And when you've asked all the kids in the classroom and they've all said no, then who can you take a picture of? Well, conveniently, iPads have a selfie camera. So you've got a human, you can take a picture of a human. So then, yes, when you share it, this means share it with that person. If they don't like it, you have to delete it. And it's not enough to just take another one. It has, that person needs to see you delete it, because obviously that's a different thing than just taking a second picture. If they say, yes, I like it, that's great, but now we have to say, how will you use it? And you probably asked that question at the beginning, but these are the steps. Once you get the picture, no, I don't think I want you to use it that way, then you must respect that. Yes, then you have to show them what you are doing with it and share it with them first. And that the other piece of this is, if you're going to use my image, I should be the first person to see the picture. So when you took it, you didn't take it with a bunch of kids behind you watching you take that picture. It's really between you and me, because again, it's my image. So I think it's a different interpretation of who owns the image, but I think students should feel empowered to own their image, and that also then gives them that sense of respect and awareness. Now here's the big problem. They'll say, but my teachers take pictures of us all the time when we're in class. And we'll say, okay, well, if you feel like it, we'll set up an agreement and you can look at those pictures. Or we have those screens at our school with rolling pictures, and I'm the one who takes all those pictures, and I say, if you see a picture of you up there that you aren't happy with, I will take it down. You just tell me and I will take it down. And they say, but my parents take pictures of me. And I'm like, well, actually my son, who Tommy knows very well, and Michael Carson knows well, my son won't let me take pictures of him. His graduation day, I got 2 pictures, and he was grumpy in both of them. And it's painful. I wish I had a lot more pictures of him, but it is really something that is a sort of a deal we have, that I won't take those pictures. Sometimes he'll say, oh, you're just going to take it anyway. I'm like, no, I'm not. But I wish I could, please. So it's a battle. But it's really important, and I think that it would put that responsibility on you as parents to have that agreement with your children too. And then there are the legal consequences. So I'm going to run this little video just very quick video on sexting.
Here are 8 things you and your teen need to know about sexting. Number 1, sexting is the sending or receiving of sexually explicit or sexually suggestive images, messages, or video. It usually happens digitally through text, emails, or instant messages. Number 2, there's no way to know exactly how many teens are sexting, but some studies show the number is as high as 20%. Number 3, teens who sext are more likely to engage in other sexual behaviors. Number 4, teens send sex to flirt, as a joke, or because they feel pressured. Number 5, disappearing messages can be copied, screen captured, or photographed and shared with others. Number 6, the consequences of sexting can include public humiliation, cyberbullying, school suspension, and even criminal charges. Number 7, if someone sends a sexy photo, the best response is to delete it. Sharing or saving it could lead to legal problems. And number 8, the best way to prevent sexting is to talk to your teens about it before it happens. For more information, visit commonsense.org.
So communication, conversation is really the bottom line to all of this. Sexting the consequences for sexting are real. They're real for the kids involved. There's a case in Florida where an 18-year-old was breaking up with his 16-year-old girlfriend. In anger, he sent all the pictures she'd ever sent him out to all the friends they had. While he was 18, she was 16, he became a sexual, he was arrested for sexual, what is it called?
Statutory rape.
Yeah, exactly. And it ruined his college options, everything just went downhill, and he's now a registered sex offender. So it seems absurd, but the law is the law right now, and it has not really kept up with it. There was a case in New Jersey back in the MySpace era, actually, when a 14-year-old on her MySpace page posted pictures of herself in compromising positions, and she was arrested. She was cited for child pornography of herself. It doesn't make any sense, but it was a case because the law has not kept up with it. So the issue with sexting is this kind of impulsive behavior that teens have. But again, it's like that question of permissions and who owns my image. When I'm sending an image of myself by any electronic device, I have given up control over that image. And I need to know that. I need the information and the conversation before it happens so that I understand that I've made that choice. And yeah, it's terrible that somebody's going to then forward it to someone else. But if I sent it, I gave up control of it. It's not right, but it's a danger that you're running into, and it can lead to lots of consequences. So we really want to communicate. We want to learn to communicate face-to-face. We want to encourage our kids to communicate face-to-face, to solve problems face-to-face, the good old-fashioned way. And there's lots of conversations we can have. I know we had a conversation about the internet, about monitoring the internet and blocking the internet. But basically, whatever you do at home, your best bet is a good, solid relationship with your children. Conversations, lots of them. And you can't sit back and think that your monitoring software is actually doing any good, because it took 58 seconds to get 300,000 results for how to disable NetNanny, and most of them are YouTube. They're straight out of YouTube, so it would just give you a step-by-step. So you can't just sit back and think that's doing it. And anyway, when you are monitoring the internet and you're preventing them from getting to places that you are worried about, you're also not giving them credit for making good choices. So really we get back to help our children learn to make good choices and make it part of their responsibility and yours. I found one of the best things for my own 3 children who got really sick of this is to discuss at the dinner table all of the latest news on really bad decisions other people made on the internet. It's really great to think that someone else did that, right? So you love to have the conversation, and you go, what a stupid person, why would they ever do that? But keeping up to date, anytime there's something, and a good place for that is Common Sense Media, and that's a link on my site, because they will send you some of the latest things about what's going on with sexting, or what's going on with all these conversations, Snapchat, or whatever it is. You can not only research those things there, but they will give you some talking points and some things that have happened, so that you have stories to tell with your children. You need to listen to their opinions and actually, think about them. A child is really doing great things on Minecraft, and they want to show it to you and explain it to you why Minecraft is important. Well, then take them at their word and give them a chance. You can argue with them after you've given them a chance to show their side of it, but you need to value them too and have them feel valued for what's important to them. Become an educated consumer of the tech world. Pay attention to the trends. Talk to your kids about them. Have them sit down with you and use some, there'll be lots of tools, or you can make up a tool of your own in the family to evaluate websites for their purpose, for their value, whether they're written by legitimate people or not. How can you tell that? All the things that teachers do too, but it's different at home. This is your actual way of monitoring the internet, is giving them those tools. Evaluate apps together. They could write app reviews. It's really kind of a cool thing to do. And you read enough reviews and you write them, you start to really be more critical. Because again, we're also in this world where if it's on the TV or if it's on the internet or if it's on YouTube, it's legitimate. We have to we want to get our kids to the place where they realize a lot of this is created content. We need to be critical of it, just like we'd be critical of anything we saw at school among our friends. So learn to be critical of created content. Learn to be critical of the YouTube videos. And then have them create content with you or themselves, and you guys can talk about that together. When they make mistakes, the problem is computers are productivity tools. You can probably do your job without your computer. They can't do their jobs either. So we also have to understand that you as parents are providing them with online access. It is a privilege. You could also not have online access in your house. And as a privilege, it requires some behavior, expectations and some discussion. So you can agree on basic rules, access, when you have access, where the computers are in the house, how much time is spent online, of course the behavior expectations. But we were also talking about multitasking and this whole idea that kids have all these screens up and they think they're doing so much work. I would challenge you to do some experiments at home. Have them demonstrate how much they can get done while multitasking. Have them do some of those kind of, do some research with them, some family research on what multitasking works and what doesn't. And see if they can really, maybe research with their friends. It would be a cool project, and there's been a lot of study of it lately. But in general, I know it's painful, but you could all agree on device-free times. Or you could create tech-free zones in your house, like bedrooms, ideally. You could decide that for charging, there's a family charging station in the middle of the house or in the kitchen. No, you're not charging your cell phone next to your bed. You could, of course, commit to time limits, and that could be for you too, because I know a lot of us take our work home and we forget that we're just working on our computer and our kids are doing whatever they're doing. And you could go retro. So, for a day.
So what's the benefit of the charging limitations? I've never thought
The
about that
charging
before.
station would be so that you're not charging in your bedroom, which means the device is next to your bed, just because you don't want them in their bedroom, because they're a temptation. So this is just a way of saying, we're charging it here, which means it's not within reach when you're supposed to be off.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just sort of another way to make that restriction. And this is really the last. We have to be aware of bullying. Sometimes we don't even know our kids are themselves engaging in bullying. They may not realize they're engaging in bullying. So we need to keep that on the front burner. When you listen in the car and the kids are talking in the back seat, if you detect anything that sounds like kids are getting bullied, you want to have the conversation with them. You want to create, your children should be the brave bystanders that are willing to stand up and stop something. And I know it's really scary and really hard, but with your encouragement, you can help it. If your child is a victim of bullying, you need to really pursue it. And there are a lot of resources. This is stopbullying.gov, which has a lot of resources, but there are other places too. And I do think that it's a very destructive problem in any case, on the playground or online, but obviously online, those trails, all those footprints last a lot longer and it becomes more painful. So these are the tools, and we'll have a conversation now with the rest of the McLean school staff, and good. So I'm open to questions too. So and at some point I can show you. You can find the resources. So this is a shortened URL if you want to just go straight in, or if you want to use the QR code, it's the same thing.
Does that have all this stuff that we just went through?
Yeah, including this presentation is there. It says McLean School presentation, so.
Feel free to put up.
Yeah. Yes.
Would it make sense for a child's first email to not be Gmail, to go to a less sophisticated place that's not picking up as much data as quickly?
That, or to create it as a, you can create an email address and then make, with Gmail, you can make additional addresses, you can, aliases for
Right.
all that account. And
Yeah.
the home account really should be yours. So if you created it and you made an alias for your child,
Yeah,
then not only do you have access to that account, but
Okay.
the data's not being collected in that child's name.
okay, that's good.